So here we are on Tisha B'Av, the ninth day of Av, the most mournful, sad day in the Jewish calendar. And we're gathering here people from all over the world in different time zones. In Israel, we're almost at the end of the fast, and people in the US, you might still be just at the beginning of this day. It's not an easy day, Tisha B'Av. It's a day that for thousands of years our people, our ancestors, would sit on the ground, would mourn, would refrain from eating or drinking. We have lamentations as part of our prayer. Whole life, I used to think that this is a mourning process, which is about Jerusalem, which is all about the temple that was destroyed. My name is Rabbi Mordechai Zeller, and you're now joining Regel BaKever, which literally means a foot in the grave. About 10 years ago, I learned a Midrash that really shook me up very deeply. It told about the people of Israel walking through the desert, and that every year they would dig a grave and go to sleep inside of it without knowing if they will wake up or not. They would go to sleep in this grave that they dug themselves and fall asleep looking up and imagine that this perhaps would be the last night of their life. A midrash ties things together. That's what we do. We say the power of time. On the same night that the temple was destroyed, more things happened. But when I read that, I said, Tisha B'Av is not just about losing a place of worship. It's not about the national side of Jerusalem, the capital of whoever. It's also about standing in front of our brokenness, our vulnerability, our mortality. And I've been very moved by that. And since then, we started this thing called Regel BaKever. Regel in Hebrew is like shalosh regalim. It means a holiday. And it means the days where it's like a foot it gives us. It allows us to stand in the world. But more than that, we say Regel BaKever, which is an expression, but it also is there to remind us that we don't just celebrate the joyous holidays as well. In order to have stability, we need to be able to come in touch with the mournful ones as well. So I'm happy to be here with my team and fellow teachers and rabbis. And this is the second year we're having an English event. I do want to say that if anybody is hard of hearing, we have captions available, and just click at the bottom of your screen where it says more, and then you can click captions and you'll be able to follow also with what people are saying. So I'll just say that this year we are in our second year of having an English event. And something about doing this for a second time feels very right to me and very beautiful. This year, I got myself a copy of a beautiful book that the introduction was written by Thomas, by Thomas Hübl. And I read it and I was moved so much that not only did I ask him to join us this year for the event, but I taught a little bit of his teachings and his words in our Zohar class that we do here every week as we were studying and preparing for Tisha B'Av. And I want to say there's so many parts of mourning that we do individually, and there's so many parts that we do as a community, and they're intertwined together. And this is something that we very much need to learn how to do. The last thing I want to say on a personal note is that this year was the 40th yard site, the 40th anniversary of my mother's passing. She passed away when I was almost 6 years old, and that was my, I would say, entry into mourning and grief and sorrow. And what I learned from my mother, who was a brave woman, who took each of her children in a couple of days before she passed and learned how to say goodbye to us, giving us gifts and speaking to us. But 40 years later, we gathered together, me and my sisters, in our community and invited people to come. And so many people showed up. And I think I understand that they came because they were our community in that moment of grieving. And they stood there with us at the time we needed them most. And when I met them, and with this I'll end, where they say it takes a village to raise a child. And I said to them, yes, but it takes a death to create a village. And sometimes the mourning we go through and the most difficult times are the ones that create something that we don't always see and we can't always sense, but it is the foundation of who we are, of our families, of our hearts, of our souls, of our community. So I'm very, very happy and honored to invite our speaker. And our speaker is Thomas Hübl, who's an internationally renowned teacher, author, and pioneer in the field of collective trauma, integrating contemplative wisdom with contemporary trauma theory and neuroscience. He accompanies individuals and communities in meeting grief, loss, and collective trauma with presence, compassion, and connection. Thomas, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, Mordechai, thank you for having me, and hello, everybody. Yes, I will keep it brief because I want that everybody has enough time to go through their own process that Mordechai and his team planned for you. So I will just tune us in a little bit on the topic and a few thoughts from my side. As Mordechai, you already said, I spent 25 years exploring what is collective trauma, how collectives are traumatized, but also how collectives can heal themselves, and how us coming together and doing the work together is very, very powerful. I think much more powerful than when we do it individually. And then I spent even more time on my own spiritual journey, and I will share a few things that I think are important for our exploration today. And so when we come together here, we actually, as a community, every community creates like its own communal presence. And communal presence means that I'm deeply interested in what you experience, and you might be interested in what I experience. And if we share our experiences, we create a mutual space. And through my work on collective trauma, I saw more and more that the notion of just personal emotions or problems is actually a myth, because emotions are here for us to share. So when somebody is afraid and we really listen to the person that is afraid, the fear becomes a joint emotional space. When somebody is grieving, then it's the same. When we grieve together, we come together as a community and we grieve because something meaningful has been lost. And so grief and love really need each other. If I cannot grieve, then I also cannot love. And if I cannot love, then I cannot grieve. And so the emotional openness and vulnerability as a shared space, I think is the repair of our world, because our world is what we co-create together. And so how creation works through us is how open we are to participate in it. And presence is a key element. I think presence is the power to heal and restore our world, and relationship is the second power. So presence and relationship is, I think, also what this event is about. And then the more I explored collective trauma, the more I saw, wow, there are actually many things that, because billions of people carry some sort of trauma, that there are many things that we normalize. And we say, well, this is how the world is. Instead of saying, well, certain things are the way how the world is, that's true. But certain things are the world how it is when it's hurt. That's important. And I believe one of those things that we normalized is the fear of death. Many people might say, yeah, many people are afraid of dying or death. And I would say, with all the exploration that I have seen with thousands of people that we brought together, and many people that were severely hurt and where death and trauma were inherently coupled, that that actually, from a deeper spiritual perspective, I don't think we as human beings are really afraid of death, but we are afraid of so many things that are coming when we hear the word death. Thousands of years of hurting each other, torturing each other, killing each other. But that is that needs to be, I believe, slowly uncoupled, as we call it, like taken off the face of death. And maybe then we will see if, as communities, we learn how to differentiate between the fears that stand in front of the gate of death and death itself. Maybe that would, first of all, enhance the way we live by a lot, because we don't keep our lives smaller than needed because of the fear of death. Death can become a teacher and show us where we are actually not living fully. And death can become a teacher to show us where we actually don't want to live. Because when we look at the traumatic moments, when life is a yes, when creation is a yes to create, and when life is a yes to live, then how come that so many of us are wondering about if we even want to be here? Why so many of us suffer depression and the doubt in our own life force? Because the pain dissociates us from the life force. And that's where not living at all becomes an option. So coming together as a community also, and looking at what authentically, not what should be there, because that should be is another form of pressure we put on ourselves, but what am I actually experiencing when I deal with the possibility of death and my finite nature? What really comes up when I have the courage to do that? And I think coming together in this space and having the current courage to go through such a process together is amazing, because that courage helps us to liberate part of our life force, part of our intelligence to live even more fully. And it helps us to together slowly peel off the layers of fear, so that the possibility of a conscious death will actually become part of our life. And instead of it being this dreadful end to something, maybe it's a conscious change of something. And not only philosophically, because philosophically that is a nice philosophical thought, but a real embodied experience, that is a way how I live my life. And then the exploration of death on these days like this is a very powerful spiritual teacher, I believe. And and maybe one more thing, and then we can also transition to the next part of the program. In a way, I deeply believe looking at our own finite nature helps us to notice that our life now is about this moment, is about our relationships, is about our current interactions with the world, is about what we are building together in this world, how we pray, how we practice, and that we can be really present in our prayers and practice and relationships. And and I find it very powerful to see, well, if I can slowly look through the opaque glasses of the gate of death, that when death becomes more translucent, and when I can see death is a change and not the end, I think I see that I'm actually not in a pressure to develop, but I'm actually in an unfolding process to develop. And in my work, we often say, if I realize that I'm walking forever, I have time for now. Because my finite nature will induce that there's all the time some kind of hurry to get somewhere, to deal with our own life issues. There's a hurry to develop ourselves or develop the world, when in fact, there is an authentic process that we often push. And because we push it, we reduce our capacity to develop. So I want to just leave us with the sentence, what if when I know that I'm walking forever, and forever doesn't mean a long time, when I'm walking forever, I have time for now, which in other words is when I know that I'm not bound to a finite time, I have the capacity to love. And maybe we take that into the exploration of your own inner exploration today throughout this process. And with that, I want to hand it back over to you, Mordecai.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I wanted to just say I was speaking about my mother. When she was very sick towards the end, she would say to people, I don't have time to hurry. If I had time, I could hurry, but I don't have enough time to hurry.
Mhm.
And I hear that in the words that you speak as well.
That's right. That's right. So thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. Before we move on to the next part, I first of all just want to acknowledge that this program, this project, WISE, has been very much with the support of YCT, of Yeshivat Chovevei Torah. And I see Rabbi Dov Linzer here. And I know that Rabbi Yafa Aronov is here and Rabbi Mike Schultz. And I just want to say from the first moment, I'm a rabbi and a clinical psychologist. And the work that I do, I sit in the clinic and people speak to me about their fear of death, like you said, Thomas, or sometimes that they want to die because they've lost that ability to be with the pain and difficulty, or they have things that have been put on their shoulders from past generations that they don't know what to do with. But as a rabbi and as a psychologist, the home that I've always had of people who speak both languages and know how important it is as rabbis, as people, to walk through this world and speak not just from the books and from the sources, but to connect them deeply with life, with our hearts, with our soul. Nobody does that better than YCT and Liv Yad Chen. We'll speak more about that, but I'm always learning so much, and I'm just very grateful for our ability to hold this project. And your support has been not just financial, but in believing in this happening. So thank you. Thank you for the space. Okay. So we're going to move on and do a little bit of joint learning. And I think it'll touch deeply on what you brought, Thomas. I hope all of you received a sheet. I'll be sharing it here as well, and Ellie will put it also on here. I'm sending it in the chat as well. And the piece we're going to learn is from a book called Sefer HaAgadah, which is a collection of legends, of old legends of the Jews. And it tells a beautiful story of the death of Aaron, the brother of Moses. Moses and Aaron were brothers from day one. They started out together. He was with him when he stood in front of Paro, and he was with him when he was growing up as a kid. And then one day, Moses, he hears that his brother Aaron is supposed to die. What's that like for him? The Torah describes to us what it's like for him, and the Midrash and the Zohar talk about that moment where Aaron dies. So we're going to learn that together, and then I'm going to ask before we do the work. And I want to say the difference between many events we come to hear from words of wisdom from the different people who are teaching. But here, the heart of the event isn't what we teach or what we hear, but it's those 10 minutes in the middle that we send you off to either write or speak with each other. If you are on your own, writing is beautiful. And if you're with somebody you love and you can share with, what an amazing time to have a conversation about these things. So we're going to start with Sefer HaAgadah, and we'll read that together. The death of Aaron. When the time came for Aaron to depart from this world, God said to Moses, "Go tell Aaron about death." And Moses replied, "Master of the universe, must he die now? Could he not live a few more years?" Aaron felt his strength begin to fail, and Aaron said, "My heart trembles within me. The terror of death has fallen upon me." And Moses asked, Can you accept death?" One second, Ellie, if you can bring it down a tiny bit. And Aaron answered, "Yes." What a moment. Moses says, "Can you accept your death?" And Aaron says, "Yes." And at that moment, Moses, together with Aaron and Eleazar, the son of Aaron, ascended Mount Hor Har, the mountain on top of a mountain. And the text says, the Torah says that they went up as all of Israel watched from below. Like Thomas was speaking a little bit about it. Everybody's watching. A cave opened up, and inside stood a heavenly bed with a lamp burning beside it. Aaron removed his priestly garments, and Eleazar kissed him upon his cheeks. And Moshe said to his brother as he gets into bed, before he starts taking off, Aaron wears the beautiful garments of the high priest. And Moses suddenly, at a moment, he says to him, "My brother Aharon, when Miriam, our sister, died, you and I cared for her. When you die, Eleazar and I will care for you. But when I die," says Moses, "who will care for me? Who will be there to bury me?" And a voice suddenly appeared, and God answered, "I will care for you." Aaron lay down on the bed, and Moses said, "Stretch out your hands." And he stretched them out. "Shut your eyes." He shut them. "Close your mouth." He gently closed his lips. And then the divine presence descended and kissed him, and his soul departed with that kiss. Moses and Eleazar kissed him upon his cheeks, and the cloud of glory descended and covered him like a blanket, like a mother tucking her child in, and the cloud of glory, which is also so connected to Aaron. The next piece is from the Zohar, and I'm sorry that I brought two, but this is such a beautiful description of death that I felt that we should learn this as well. The Zohar also describes that when Moses heard that Aaron was going to die, that it's like his hand, he said, I lost my arm. It's like part of my body is gone. And everybody watched as they climbed up to the mountain. And this is the image that the Zohar says. And all of Israel watched as Moses removed Aaron's priestly garments and dressed Eleazar with them. Moses, the leader, is standing with his brother and his nephew, Aaron's son. And he takes off a garment and he dresses his son. And he undresses him and he's dressing him. Moses was the one who dressed him when he became the high priest. And now Moses is the one taking off his garments. Moses removed from Aaron what he himself had once given him, while God removed from Aaron what he himself had given him. Together they stripped Aaron of everything. Moses removed what was on the outside, and God removed what was on the inside. This is the moment of death in the Zohar, like taking off a garment. There's a moment in a funeral, and I looked for a source, but I couldn't find it, but I'm sure you know this, especially if you're in Israel, where the Chaver Kadisha, they'll stand in front of the grave that was just covered with earth, and they say with the most kavod, dignity that they can, on behalf of the Chaver Kadisha, the burial society, we release you from every affiliation, every society to which you belonged, every office you held, every obligation you carried, and every role by which you were known. Go in peace. Go in peace. What are the roles that become such a part of who we are? That as we die, we need to unclothe ourselves from some of them. I'd like to invite Danny Cohen, a dear friend, who's also one of the teachers and founding members of Ol Halev, to guide us in a guided meditation before we go out to do a little bit of work with ourselves. So Danny, b'chavod, I'm so happy and honored you're here with me. We learned together and we shared a lot of deep things in our soul and our love and the things that we care for. And I'm so happy and honored to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation, Mordechai. So we'll take a few minutes for meditation. And in keeping with the themes of exploration, let's do it like this. If you're comfortable, you can close your eyes. And for one, you can just feel the pull of gravity that happens without any effort. We're coming into a deeper inhabiting of ourselves. And then you can see your own name as if it's appearing across your forehead or inside your forehead. That name which represents your identity, your roles. And just for a few moments, you can abide with the letters of your name and with the energy, the associations. in a sense, the garments of your identity. You can hear also the sound of your name. You might include it, like as we do in our tradition, naming your mother, your father, the son, the daughter of. And then as you see the letters or hear the sounds, you can let them fade away, fade into silence or disappear into stillness. And as that happens, you can come further back in the sense, in the space from which you were in your forehead, more into the Dvir Beitecha, if you will, the innermost chamber of your being. So it's a coming to be present, a coming to be conscious in a place, in that space that's closer than your thoughts. Closer even than your usual feelings. It doesn't mean thoughts need to go away, they're not a problem. But coming to inhabit this space of vibrant, conscious presence. The space from which, without thinking, there is a kind of witnessing or a knowingness that pervades all the other garments of experience, thoughts, sensations, feelings, images. It's subtler. And also spacious. You might have already noticed, or you may notice now, the way this conscious presence, this subtle presence, is actually permeating throughout the entirety of your body. And that space, this knowing space, space of awareness, conscious presence, doesn't matter so much what we call it. It's present both in that deep inner center throughout the body and also all around. Mimale u'sovev, throughout and all around. And from this space of conscious presence, you might sense how whatever phenomenon arises can just be known, known and loved, known and included, known and released. You might see from this place, maybe also there's a sense, if you go down also to a centeredness in the deep heart, then what can relax through being known, loved, with the utmost tenderness, of this conscious presence that indwells us. There may be a subtle sense here of amness, of I am, but without even having to say those words. If subtle enough, perhaps
Bring
even...
it here if you want.
Exactly, bring it here, all the way here. If subtle enough, we might even sense, as Reb Tzadok says, this kind of overlap of the eye of the divine, of the Shekhinah, that glows through you. And then just for the last minute or two, you can stay in this space of centeredness, of this closeness that's closer than thoughts, but have your eyes open. And let your eyeballs rest into your eye sockets. Oftentimes we're looking out only of one part of the eye, the top of the eye or the middle of the eye. And you can let the eyes rest into the eye sockets and just effortlessly receive. And then just in the last moment, if you'd like to write, if there's one thing that you're in touch with that's alive in you or in your world that you would like to be known through this collective presence, then just write that one word in the chat. And like Thomas says, we can be like the resonance body for each of those words, letting it echo through our tender and witnessing presence. I'll just say some of them: love, joy, yearning for wholeness, aliveness, heart, fear, eternity, timeless. I am alive, joy. And as each of those notes of aliveness comes alive, we can just feel the particular dance of chayut, of the play of the divine life through the different flavors and feelings of being, coming into the yichud of being known. Hineni, loved, lost. And we'll bring the meditation to a close in its formal practice, but those qualities which we might have touched can go on ripening in us and through us and amongst us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Danny, for tying together the undressing and moving a bit inward from the clothing, which isn't just what we wear, but who we think we are. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Will do. and either or. I don't think we have time for both. We're going to take 10 minutes. But before, let's hear a little bit about them. So either Mike or Daniel, who wants to speak a bit about Mike, do you want to start?
Sure. And do you want to put Ellie, can you put the questions up on the screen so people can see the conversation
Conversation
questions?
question.
And so in a few minutes, we're gonna take a pause from this space where we're all together, and we're gonna invite everybody to some personal work. And the personal work can be, yeah, so the one says conversation questions. Perfect. So we're starting on the left, the conversation questions. Everybody is invited. If you're sitting here with someone close to you, someone you can speak openly with, someone you love, we're suggesting some conversation questions. And if you want to be writing by yourself, then you'll have the writing questions that Daniel will share with you in a moment. So the conversation questions. Just a few thoughts. You can take it obviously in any direction, but a few thoughts as we're trying to there's so many different questions we could ask ourselves surrounding death. And as we even think about our death or the death of the people close to us, so sometimes just asking a question, just thinking it over with ourselves and with somebody, talking it through with somebody who's close to us, it can have a real important impact on us, and in particular on some of the fears that Thomas spoke about, some of the things that just touching on death raises up for us. By speaking about it, something starts to shift. And so we suggested a few questions here. The first three have to do with this question of who am I with at the time of dying? Whether it's my own death, who would I want to be with me? And I'm a hospital chaplain. We see a lot of variety, a lot of range here. What seems like you might have an answer that jumps to mind for you, and you might discover that the person you're sitting with, what's so obvious for you is actually different for them. Whether there are people who want to have certain people with them, other people who actually want to be alone at the moment of their dying. And then our second question was, to whom would you want to offer your presence if they were dying? Who are the people who you feel like you could offer that gift if it were right for them? Some of our words, silence, song, prayer, or simply presence. What would I like there to be in those moments? How would I imagine that last week, that last day, those last hours? And what do I need from my community as I prepare to die? If we're thinking about how Moshe, how Aaron's children, how the whole people of Israel were preparing, we're joining, we're there with Aaron in those moments. So what if we think about those larger circles of love and support that we have? So I'm going to turn it over to Daniel to talk about the writing questions, but I just want to add a note that this whole hour, this kind of approach of taking life, all the different topics of life, all the different key elements of life, and connecting it to our Torah in such a broad range, whether it's through Torah study, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through pastoral care, whether it's through interpersonal conversations. This is the Torah Chaim, the Torah of life that Yeshivat Chovevei Torah really tries to teach, connecting all the different aspects of what does it mean to be a human being to our Jewish lived tradition. And with that, I want to hand it over to Daniel to share with us the writing questions.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks, everyone. So here I'm on the east coast of America at the moment. We're still in the strong part of the morning now.
Daniel, oh here, okay, good. Rabbi Daniel. One second, I just wanted to say about Mike that Mike works in the hospital and he is also working at training a lot of rabbis and a lot of lay people at being able to exactly do what these questions are speaking about. How do we stand in those gentle spaces between life and death and ask the right questions and enable conversation? And Mike is also the head of Livyat Chen, which that's what you do, and that's what he does together with his work with YCT. And I'm also just grateful, Mike, for our partnership and all the beautiful things coming out of that. So thank you. Daniel.
Hey, thanks, Mordechai. So, the grief of the day is still very raw here. We're still in the first part of the day, and I'm so grateful we have this opportunity, because I feel like the invitation of the day is to feel grief, which of course most of us would rather avoid most of the time, but to feel the grief with a deep yearning for moving through it in a healing way, for moving with the grief and letting it teach us, as Thomas mentioned, as Danny mentioned, the grief is such a teacher, and I think this moment is this part of the event is an opportunity for that. So Ellie, please will you share
Daniel,
the
Daniel, can I ask you to get a bit closer to the microphone? It's so we can
Sure.
hear you a bit better, or raise your
Sure.
voice. I'm sorry.
Sure. So Ellie, please will you share the questions for writing, either in the chat or on the screen if you can, and I'll mention each one, just go through them a little bit, prepare us as best we can. Thank you so much. Great. So these are questions that this day gives us an opportunity to work with, and there's something very very holy about that opportunity. So imagine your final moments. Am I ready to die? What, if anything, still keeps me here? Who do I imagine standing with me as I'm dying? Who will care for me? How would I answer that question myself? Moving down, if we can scroll down the list and see more, thank you. What identities, titles, affiliations, or responsibilities would I need to remove before I could die in peace? Who am I beneath all the garments of my life? Describe the kiss of death. So that's the invitation to use these. It could be for writing or any other kind of creative practice, or even just for silent reflection, if that's what works for us right now. Thank you. I'll hand it back.
This is the heart of the event. And this is also a moment that sometimes we know how to hear somebody speak. We know how to read a book, or to take things in. But when it comes to doing work, there's a lot of resistance. Why am I saying that? The heart of the event is the next 10 minutes. Only 10 minutes. I want us to take 10 minutes, and my whole staff were here. And these 10 minutes, I'm inviting you to take out a paper and write. And if you're with somebody, then speak to them and take turns asking each other these questions. Because these 10 minutes are the most precious ones. This is us doing the work. And you've entered into this communal space. You're being held and loved and cared for. And yes, if things that are hard come up and you need a little bit of help, raise your hand. One of us will come speak with you. We'll be doing. This isn't easy to touch on these ideas and these subjects. It's not easy to write about this, but there's something about it that is also redemptive. This is the redemptive part of Tisha B'Av on this pain. So we're going to take 10 minutes now, and you can leave your camera on if you want to look around and see people. You can shut it off if you're having conversation. If you need anybody, just raise your hand. We're here Close, close, close. And in 10 minutes, we'll gather everybody back. 3 more minutes. Okay. Inviting everybody to come back from your words and reflections and imagination of the things that we can imagine and the things that we can't. And from those conversations that we always push off and don't want to have, that are so important to have, especially with the people we love. Mike, do you want to do a little bit of the collecting? Would you like to?
Yeah, thank you, Mordechai. So we have a few minutes. If you know, one or two or three people would like to share something that came up from this from the conversations that you had now, or from the writing that you did now. So feel free to open up your microphone and share a thought or an experience from now. Robin, I saw you raise your hand first, so please go ahead.
One thing that came out when I was discussing this with my daughter is, you know how we have a shiva after you die? I think it would be good to have something like that before we die, something like this, but something more intimate with like maybe our synagogues and our collections, our family, but a community pre-death.
Wow, thank you, Robin, right? That opportunity to hear what people would say and to really sort of face that reality, but while we're still there with the people
I,
who are closest to us.
I love that idea. I'll
That's
also
what
just
this
add to
is.
that and say that Reb Zalman Schachter, he writes that he was so curious about his own death. He asked the Chevra Kadisha, the burial society, to give him a tahara to cleanse him as if for his burial while he was still alive. He asked Reb Zalman asked to do that. He said, I want to be alive when that happens. I want to feel that. I want to connect through that to what it would be like to die. And I think that so many of those things are us wanting to be alive, like to be alive and to hear some of those things. But the conversation you're having now with your daughter, what a blessing that is. Not just wait till the shiva itself, but to speak about it, to speak about it now.
I'm so
I'm the daughter, and I've been trained. I sit with people who are dying, and I'm so blessed my mother invited me to this. And I just want to say, I think also what she meant was to have, like at synagogues, an ongoing group instead of a grief group, learning to live with dying in a positive way to live, like Thomas was talking about. And thank you for being here, all of you, and having this. It's very important.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie. I see Ariella's also lifting her hand. Ariella?
Thank you. I'm just very nervous speaking, and I want to name that. The two things that came up for me that were really powerful was for the question around who would be with you. I wrote my mom, and my mom died 11 years ago, and that was just like a very interesting moment for me of grief that came up through this exercise. Um, and what kept coming through the writing for me around fear of death was just like somehow feeling like I'm not really quite living yet. When it said, like, what's keeping you from dying, or what would you need to do to feel comfortable with death, it kept coming to the same thing of like living and like a hole, trying to fill a hole that doesn't seem to be filled, and like an over association with my mind. Um, so those were just some of my reflections.
Ariella, thank you. All the mystical traditions, including the Zohar, say that at the moment of death, all of our loved ones are there waiting for us. And it's a good
I think we
question,
have time. Oh, go
not just
ahead.
who are the living, but who have passed on, and we want them to be by our side.
I know that there's a
I
lot
also,
of conversation that we could do and a lot of people that we would love to hear from. I think we have time for one more, and I see that Carol
yeah.
is raising her hand. We can
And I
hear
want to say
one
something
more.
just before. I want to say hello, Carol. And I want to say I spoke
Hello,
with Reb
Mordecai.
Zalman. When I went to visit Reb Zalman, I slept at your home.
Yes.
And your home was a home to me. And Joe, I miss him and I loved him. And I'm so honored that you're here with us, Carol.
Thank you, Mordecai. So my question is around that. So the one thing that in reading through the questions yesterday that I struggle with is sudden death. And how do we wrap our brains around this list of things to do to prepare for death when someone just dies suddenly? And I was just moved to tears yesterday reading and thinking of Joe dying alone and not having an opportunity to have any time to think about who could be with him. And I like to think that all of his angels and all of the angels that we send out every Shabbat were around him. And that's how I reconcile sudden death. I know I can do the work around my own death and what's to come in life now. But as far as, when you lose someone suddenly and they're alone, then that was my way of filling that void.
Carol, I think on the one hand, we all die alone, and on the other hand, we never die alone. And I know it doesn't make sense because I'm saying two things that are opposite, but you're right. I hear so many stories, and I'm sure Mike can tell as well. So many times that somebody's about to die and their child or spouse says, I'm just going out for a minute, wait. And in that minute or that second, suddenly something opened up that enables them to move on. You don't know how that works. But I know, because I know you and I know Joe, that there's moments that we're surrounded by so much love, that those moments aren't just about who holds our hands at that moment, but who held our hand as we walked through life with dignity, with love, with family, with depth.
Well,
And
and
I imagine
I will pass along to everybody, never walk out the door without telling people you love them. And I did that morning before he died, and I have no regrets. And it's so much better in living with no regrets. Thank you, Mordechai.
Thank you, Carol. And I see that we have, I don't think we're gonna be able to hear everyone, but I do see that we have also Reb Mimi, who was our guest last year. And I'm so happy and honored to have you here, Reb Mimi. But I want to actually wait 1 second and say, let's close this up. And maybe Mimi, if you're here, I'll give you a couple of minutes to close this evening and say something at the end, if that's okay. Deborah, would you like to say something short? And I would love to hear what you have to say.
Sure. I want to thank you for this amazingly beautiful, generous program, and Mike for being with me in the chat. The thing I'm turning 71 in a few days, and the thing that I am seeing are those kind of the yeses and the nos. The yes, I would like to just be out of here, and no, I'm carrying this weight of the unlived life that is demanding attention. And I've been a hermit, and I'm realizing I need intimacy and connection. And just that kind of, what do you want to call, the opposites in the greater whole that are so pulling on me. And the preciousness of this time together is just, I have no words. I'm so grateful to you.
Mike?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Deborah, for the chance to get to know you a little bit and opening up your heart and soul, and really to everybody who shared and everybody who opened up with themselves in their writing, and everybody who opened up with their loved ones and with this larger group, and sort of may those circles continue to grow, the circles of connection, circles of support that we're able to provide one another. So yeah, again, thank you everybody for participating, and all the team here for leading this event, and turn it back to you for Mordechai to
And
close out the event.
before I allow Mimi to say something, there's one last text on the page. We usually bring a poem, but this year I thought it was very appropriate. And it's from the Bhagavad Gita, an ancient sacred text of the Hindus. And this is what it says. Just as a person casts off worn out garments and puts on new ones, so the embodied self casts off worn-out bodies and enters into others that are new. We get dressed and we undress, like the Zohar, like in the teachings of Reb Nachman, who said that death is like taking off a garment. And yet, it is painful and it hurts, and we hold on because we mourn, because we love. I want to thank YCT, Yeshivat Chovevei Torah, Rabbi Dov Linzer, Rabbi Yafa, and Rabbi Mike, who are a home to speak language which is Jewish and which teaches Torah, but is connected to life. And we can't be connected to life if we're not willing to stand in moments that we're also connected to pain, to difficulty, to all those things that break our heart open. But that crack opens up our heart. The Zohar says that when Yaakov went down, he saw that there's a shever, which means food, but the Zohar says he saw brokenness. And he said, where there's brokenness, we're drawn to it because something beautiful happens there. Reb Mimi, I'd love to give you a couple of minutes to close this event, and thank you for being here, Reb Mimi.
A totally unexpected gift. I want to share a very practical detail, and then I want to share a teaching that gives me much life. The practical detail, and they're both connected to the Mishnah in Avot, Da me'ayin bata ve'la'an ata holech ve'lifnei mi ata atid liten din v'cheshbon. It's a Mishnah that we, unfortunately, I say no primarily because it's recited at most Jewish funerals, know where you're coming from and where you're going, and in front of who you will be accountable. And it details the physicality of where we're going, where we came from, and the physicality of where we are going. And Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev asked, how could it be that Akavia ben Mahalalel, which his name really is the heel of God, Akavia, Ekevya, the son of Mahalalel, one who praises God, how could he be known most for saying this statement? Rabbi Levi Yitzchak is asking us, is offering us a perspective of know that we come from the ayin. Da me'ayin bata. That Akavia ben Mahalalel is not saying know where you come from, but Akavia ben Mahalalel is saying know that we come from the ayin. We come from the no-thingness. We come from the infiniteness. And that is our choice in life. How do we want to live our lives? Do we want to be the outcome of the physicality of the historic narrative that we have been born into? Do we want to hold on to the potential of neuroplasticity and the memory that we come from ayin, we come from the infiniteness, and we live in infiniteness, and we embrace people that connect us to our infiniteness? That is what Akavia ben Mahalalel is asking. And it was within this teaching that has been sitting with me so deeply, and as I want to say, as a daily meditation, where I begin my day with, where I know where I'm coming from and where I'm going in the morning. And when I come home at night, know where I'm coming from and where I'm going, as a daily meditation, and ask myself, what were the ayin moments that I had today? What were those infinite moments that I had? With whom? Who brought me to be in touch with those infinite elements of my life? So I want to add one more question to the most amazing list of questions, and the courage that everyone that is here to show up, to be here, to not be alone today, to touch upon these questions, to come so close to those moments, and then know that we have an obligation to bring ourselves back into life. I want to add another question in the spirit of teachings that I learned from Roshi Joan Halifax. And that is the question of how are we living our lives to bring us to that ultimate moment? How are we living our lives every day? With whom are we living our lives to bring us to that ultimate moment, to connect us, moments that connect us to our most infinite being and possibility, and that infinite element that, yes, 11 years later is still here. And yes, we were with him in those last breaths, no matter where we were in our physical being. On a practical level, Mordechai knows this. Mordechai, I actually know where I'm going to because I bought my kever. I bought my grave. And it gives me so much joy. And it brings me in my life so much freedom because there's a part of who I am that knows where I'm going. And I know that when I'm there, Mordechai and the extended Zeller family will be singing to escort me because I've asked them to do that. So how we live our lives with whom, and how do we allow ourselves to live with greatness, with peace, with ease, with joy, and with courage to embrace the unknown.
Thank you. Thank you, Mimi. And thank you, everybody who was courageous to come here and to stay and to write and to speak. And yes, Regel BaKever, this is a holiday we need to embrace. They say the Messiah is born on Tisha B'Av. The Messiah is that moment that we speak about our mortality and our intervulnerability. Thank you, everybody. We'll meet you next year. And thank you to everybody who've been a part of this, and the captions, and Danny and Daniel for the partnership with Applied Jewish Spirituality and all of his community who's here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And may it be a beautiful and meaningful day for all of you. And we should meet again soon. And that's it. Next year we'll have another one. And until then, may we walk and live beautiful lives together.
Thank you.
Thank you.